sky turned black, the stars fell down. United we stand, but we're losing ground. One world beneath the iron fist. Voices silenced, they cease to resist. Echoes of hope in the darkening night. Fading whispers of a long lost life. Rise up, hear the call to arms. In this storm of chaos we'll find our charms. Together we'll fight through the ashes and dust. A phoenix reborn in our hearts' purest trust. The sirens wail through the desolate towns. Once proud nations painted in the scars of the crown. A single army marching on our dreams. Unity forged in despair, or so it seems. Nothing left but shadows drifting away as the last embers of freedom decay. Rise up, hear the call to arms. In this storm of chaos we'll find our charms. Together we'll fight through the ashes and dust. A phoenix reborn in our hearts' purest trust. One global army, together we stand. In the fall of the world, we'll make our last stand.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition that we don't have very often of Midnight's Monsters. This episode is going to be about the smoke wolves, okay? And I don't know if any of you ever heard of the smoke wolves, but I'm sure that if you followed a certain television show and a certain podcast show currently that's on YouTube, you probably have heard of them. Okay, we're going to get into the thick of it, and I'm going to tell you the difference of different things and basically what's going on with the smoke wolves. Okay, but before we do that, I want to get into the disclaimer like we always do, and then I want to mention something, talk to everybody about something real briefly concerning a very, very dear brother of mine that recently passed away. So that being said, we're going to get into the disclaimer first. The copyright disclaimer is this channel may use some copyrighted material without specific authorization of the owner, but contends that it falls under the fair use, which is the Copyright Act of 1976, which makes allowances for purposes such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, parody, and entertainment value. under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, otherwise known as the Fair Use Act. Okay, and furthermore, all the music and all the intros and outros and basically everything that is in the podcast by me is solely owned by me. So I have full copyrights to all of the music. We uh, we lost another good one. Um, Everybody, and I'm sure that you all have
Ooh, is it my internet or his?
Okay.
Oh.
All right. I'm going to try it again. All right. Yeah, they're going to mess with it. Okay. The powers that be don't want me to talk. We lost another good one, another brother, a military veteran brother, too, and a Bigfoot researcher, Scott. And him and Hannah are like, they're like family to me, as far as I'm concerned. And I just, I wanted to say a little something tonight before we went on and did our show, and I wanted to post a couple things about him. And there he is in all his glory, um, the man, the myth, the legend, the uh, the the gentle guy that did the Bigfoot hunting. Yeah, we had the pleasure of having him on the podcast very recently, as a matter of fact, talking about his new listening device and triangulating and everything, to pinpoint the location of a possible Sasquatch, Bigfoot, um, and it was very informative. He was a brilliant man. He still is a brilliant man. He's just on the other side, folks. He really is. I mean, he knows the answers we're looking for now. That's pretty much it. Um, but he's a military veteran. He was a great father. He's a fabulous husband, and one hell of a Bigfoot researcher. And I want to take a moment and just reflect temporarily for about a minute. Give him a moment of silence, and say a prayer for him and Hannah and, and the rest of the family, if you would please. And then after that moment of silence, I'm going to post something that if you want to help out Hannah with her expenses and stuff, with everything, it would be greatly appreciated. I know she would appreciate it, and she doesn't even know I'm doing this. So if she's listening, sorry, but I sprang it on you, Hannah. Tracy and I love you very much. We respect Scott. We love Scott like family, and I'm sure everybody in the chat does too. So that being said, let's take a moment of silence for Scott, please. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for that moment of silence. I appreciate that. And here is a GoFundMe link, um, so you can help out Hannah if you want to. I just posted it. Um, the it's If you want to write it down, it's https semicolon // GoFundMe /568B60 E59, and it's a GoFundMe that was organized by Peggy, and thank you, Peggy, for doing that. By the way, um, if you can help, any little bit would help. Um, that the goal is obviously going to be changed, because as far as anybody that when you lose a loved one, it's quite the loss financially and spiritually and mentally and physically. So it hits you in all angles, and I just want to try and help out Hannah as much as possible if we could, please. Um, if you know her, she's a wonderful person. She's I don't think she's ever, as far as I know, unless, other than joking, ever spoke badly about anybody, or or funny type of wittiness about somebody. She picked on me occasionally, but then again, I picked back. So, but that's what family does. We we goof around like that. So please, if you can help her, just keep her in your thoughts and your prayers, and keep Scott in thoughts and prayers, and everybody that knew him, knew that he was a great man. He really was one of a kind. And with all the people that we've lost in these last couple years, from Scott Carpenter to just literally everybody, and it's getting to the point where it's starting to get depressing, folks. It really is. And the point of trying to help Hannah out with this, okay? So that's why I wanted to do that. Getting into the subject matter of the smoke wolves. All right. Smoke wolves. We are going down a very, very confusing path when we deal with smoke wolves. You know, some people would consider it possibly a trickster spirit. I don't. It has nothing to do with Native American lore or legend whatsoever, unfortunately. Um, I would imagine that any powerful dark medicine person um, could conjure up something like that, like a smoke wolf. I don't doubt that whatsoever, especially with what's going on currently today with the spiritual warfare. But I hate to break it to everybody, but there is no smoke wolves are not real animals. They can be possibly considered a cryptid, but they're more of a supernatural type of an entity, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Um, One thing that I've come to realize with growing up the way I had, and with everything happening and being Native American, and researching all this most of my life, and sometimes things get bits and pieces get taken away and create other you know out of and it's I don't want to offend anybody, okay, but when somebody says something, it's like you have the capability to manifest something, okay, but I think what we have here, since there's no indication of a connection supernaturally or even cryptid wise to Native American heritage, and legends, especially from the legends of the Appalachian Mountains. The only connection that can be made to a smoke wolf type of a supernatural being would be a grim. Okay. Now, there is a spot in West Virginia, and a very, very prominent TV show investigated it. I'm sure you all know it, Mountain Monsters, with Buck, Bill. Huck, Willie, Trapper, and Jethro. All of them. Um, Unfortunately, uh, Trapper had passed before the group could go and investigate the Taggart Valley in West Virginia. And another great individual that passed, by the way, all within the last couple of years. And it's ridiculous the amount of people we're losing. That being said, Taggart Valley was known to be one of the spots where the timber wolves, were actually introduced back into the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, and when you deal with something that you really not used to encountering, and you see a decreased population in and attacks on farm animals and stuff, um, and even attacks on other wildlife. You have no idea how vicious a pack of wolves can be, especially one that has no other natural predator in the area known of. Okay, other than possibly a large bobcat or the coyote packs or whatnot. And unfortunately, I don't believe a pack of coyotes could take on a pack of wolves. I just don't believe it would happen. Physically, they're incapable. They're a smaller canine species, plain and simple. The timber wolves that were introduced into the area, I don't know how many of you have ever had an encounter with a wolf, a real timber wolf. Okay, I'm not talking a coyote. I'm not talking a dog and a wolf mix. I'm talking a real life timber wolf. Okay, we growing up, we had a wolf when I was young, and she was a female, and her name was Trixie, and she was the biggest canine I had ever seen in my life, and very protective of the family unit. Unfortunately, she passed, but when I was young, and to make a long story short, they are huge, huge wildlife canines. Okay, they really are. A timber wolf, the paw print on it is bigger than a human hand. Okay, laying flat out. Okay, plain and simple. So they can be misconstrued as even possible dogman tracks. Okay, and I hate to say that, but it's true. All right. Um, but where the connection lies, supernatural lie, with the smoke wolves in my research and in my encounters with real live timber wolves is basically in the Taggart Valley is very populated by a certain um, immigrant people that came here from Europe. Okay, back in several hundred years ago, and of course when they come here, they bring their own belief system with them, spiritually wise, just like anybody else. That's how some of the Druid beliefs came here. Some of the other cryptid tales came here. So that being said, the Irish, Scottish, and people of Wales, and I can't remember the fourth area over there. They used to, when the head of the family would pass, and say they owned a farm in the mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains, Taggart Valley, just take for instance. If that individual died, whether it was natural causes or an accident or unalived on purpose, nefariously, they would always have their their beloved dog buried with them alive. Okay, if not with them, then next to them where their grave site was on the property. Hence the formation of a grim. Okay, smoke wolves. Okay, they are described described as an enormous, malevolent, red-eyed, smoke-bodied, wolf-like cryptid, okay, that kills strictly for pleasure and is associated with specific dangerous area known as no man's land in the Taggart Valley, okay? It's a cultural heritage thing, okay? And it basically got brought here from European nations, um, and it's their belief, okay? And these they are literally getting a grim, which is the black dog with red eyes, confused with smoke wolves. They're naming something because they're seeing the damage of a timber wolf's pack having on ravaging farmers and ranchers and stuff and livestock and even wildlife and even coyote packs getting annihilated because of the veracity of a timber wolf pack. Okay. And I just want to make sure that this isn't another thing that just doesn't get blown completely out of proportion. There is nothing stating in any eastern coastal Native American nation that describes anything remotely like a smoke wolf. Now we do have trickster spirits, okay, that we can call forth, okay, and I've talked about one quite a bit, and it goes by the Coyote King. So that is, yes, the black shuck. Very good. That's exactly it. Um, so in order to get the cryptid community to realize that not everything is a Native American legend. Not everything is. Sometimes we kind of go overboard, whether it's out of fear, whether it's adrenaline rush. We kind of mis misinterpret things. Okay, and I guess the closest thing to it would have been, the closest way for somebody to describe something that they would get a fleeting glimpse of running past them in the darkness of the night would be a smoke wolf. Okay, they would see the form of a wolf and consider it being something supernatural or a cryptid. Okay, and when it in actuality was a real timber wolf. Okay, plain and simple. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but unfortunately, I can verify that there is no smoke wolf connection to Native American folklore or legend. Okay. Not in my Cherokee blood, not in my Shawnee blood, and not in my Lakota blood. Now, we do have something called the Shunka. Okay. Now, this is something that is a whole nother animal. Okay. It's actually a cryptid from the Lakota region, okay, of South Dakota, that area of the country. And it's said to carry off dogs, okay? So it's a big wolf. This could be exactly what people are seeing. It could be a Shunkaworkon, which people have related to a dire wolf, okay? So there's that aspect of it too that you've got to be open to. But as far as an actual smoke wolf coming out and forming of smoke and all that, no, there is no such thing as a smoke wolf. I do believe that what they're seeing are just very, very large. And if anybody knows what a timber wolf looks like, they're a big beast, okay? And they can rip a coyote pack apart without a problem at all. So they've been known to fend off grizzly bears too, very, very successfully, by the way. So they've been known to take down buffalo, and we all know how big buffalo are. Okay, you get a pack of coyotes together, and I mean a pack of wolves together, and they will take down a buffalo, and they always go for the weakest link too. So Just want to put that out there to everybody, okay? So when it comes to smoke wolf, please don't jump the gun and claim that it's Native American, because there's no premise for it in Native American culture. Okay. Now, what do you think, Eric?
Uh, hey, Genocide. Yeah, I can see the simulation. I agree with you. I don't know any Native American culture that talks about a smoke wolf. I've actually never heard of one before. And I agree, it sounds a lot like the Black Shuck.
Yep.
Oops. Um, so I can see it being tied to possibly the Fae or some kind of culture like that because of the practices they did with the barium. Um,
Exactly.
I can see
And
that. We did have a couple questions too, but go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, and it's the perfect description of the black shuck and or grim, or whatever you want to call it, is a massive black wolf looking canine with red glowing eyes, and it's exactly the way the smoke wolf has been described. So I think there's that super. I think it's a supernatural connection that they're seeing. I don't think it's a flesh and blood
Mm.
cryptid creature that they're seeing. I think they're misconstruing the timber wolves that are flesh and blood in the area, because they're going to be huge. The timber wolves in that area of West Virginia that were released, um, they have no natural predators there. They don't have to fend off grizzly bears. Okay. Black bears aren't going to do nothing to them. Okay. Coyote packs aren't going to do nothing to them. Mountain lions, if there are mountain lions that are in the area, and I know they are because I've seen them firsthand, they're not going to mess with a pack of wolves. So they have no natural predator. Of course, they're going to go after farm animals and stuff, calves and stuff, and attack them, because their whole premise was to be the aggressor, to hunting the weaker buffalo and to thinning the herd. Okay. And removing that weakness from the herd. That's what made the buffalo so strong before the white man came here. So I don't know. Aren't they usually accompanied by a human looking entity? I have never heard any reports of the black shuck being accompanied by any type of form of a human entity. The only correlation that would be made with that, Corey, I believe, would be the spirit of the actual owner of the pet that was buried alive with him, okay, in the same grave area, to protect him and his spirit on the other side. Hence the black shuck and hence the grim. Okay. So that being said, I mean, and I'm not taking away from the possibility of a smoke wolf being manifested. If somebody had the ability um, to manifest things in a negative way, I could see it happening. Okay. But to me personally, I don't believe, I think that they had just, I think it's a mixture of confusion. I think it's a mixture of people's fears, imagination running away with them, adrenaline rushes from experiencing a real timber wolf pack. Um, and they're damn lucky they didn't get attacked by the pack themselves, because they're not going to not attack a human. Okay. So if you live in the Taggart Valley in West Virginia, please be very careful. Don't go out without being armed. Okay. And don't go out alone. So that'd be my suggestion. But yeah, I don't see any connection to the smoke wolves whatsoever to be a physical cryptid creature other than a timber wolf. Okay. Do you think people can manifest things by accident? Yes, I'm a firm believer of that, Bounty. I'm a firm believer of that. Yeah, people have no idea. Humanity has no idea the manifestation powers that they have. And, religion's not going to teach you that because they don't want you to know that. Okay. They don't want you to be able to tap into that sacred knowledge. Okay. And we've talked about it 100 times on the channel. And so, but yes, people can manifest things accidentally. Definitely.
Yeah. And here in Missouri, even in my neck of the woods, we have red wolves, and we have timber wolves that are called Missouri gray wolves. I've never, hey Michelle, I've never had any kind of negative reaction with them. In fact, when I was homeless at one time, and the family that took us in, they had rescued a Missouri gray wolf pup. Its mother and siblings had passed away, and it followed me everywhere I went. Never would let me get 15 foot from a snake. It would stop me, kill the snake before it let me move on. Followed me to the bus stop. Would wait at the bus stop till I got back home off the bus and followed me back home. I've never ever in 46 years have ever had a negative interaction with the wolves here in Missouri.
Yep. Yep. And that's the same with the wolf that we had growing up, same thing. Scandinavia was the other country, Eric, I was thinking of about the grim and the black shuck having that belief. So
yeah, England is
mention
very
that.
prominent. England
Yeah.
is where the black shuck comes from. And it sounds a lot like a hellhound, which we have hellhound encounters here in Missouri.
And there's hellhound encounters too. There's hellhound encounters too in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, all the way down into Alabama, actually.
And I have seen the black dog twice. Actually, very recently, as in like a few months ago, it's the second time. And for those of you who don't know, this is an old trucker's deal. You get so tired and you keep pushing hard, and then all of a sudden you get visited by what's called the black dog. And usually something bad is accompanied by it. The first time I saw it, it was running on a fence row at me, jumped through the fence at me, and I almost wrecked my truck. The second time I was at work when it happened, striping at night, and I seen it running through a yard at me. It stopped, looked at me. Now, the first one had red eyes. The second one had gray eyes. The gray eyes stopped and looked at me and then disappeared.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly, that's the part where I believe a lot of the fear and imagination and adrenaline can carry away with that kind of encounter too. Especially if you have never experienced something like that before, So definitely,
Yeah, and like with my two black dog experiences, I always found it odd that the one with the red eyes is the one that lunged out at me, and it literally went through the fence. I'm not talking about missing in between the gaps of the fence. I'm literally manifested through the fence and jumped at me. But the other one had gray eyes, and it was kind of like, "Hey, dude, you need to wake up. Something bad's about to happen." It wasn't aggressive like the first one. I don't know if there's two different kinds, and each one has a different symbolism to them. I don't know. That's just been my experiences with the two black wolves. The gray-eyed one was the one that happened a couple months ago.
Yeah. I can't read that.
He said, William, I found a wolf track in my driveway after a bad lightning storm, just one print the size of my hand, maybe bigger. It had coyote prints circling it. Yeah. So I don't know. Hey, could these black dogs be tied to the smoke wolf?
I think
there's similarities.
I think that I think when you're dealing with the smoke wolf sightings, you're literally dealing with the black shuck or the grim. I think it's called a Kirky grim, or a church grim, when it talks about the black dog having red eyes. Um, it's more of a guardian spirit, um, type of an entity, supernatural entity, not a physical flesh and blood, but supernatural. Okay, and when even some churches, have cases where there was dogs that had, just before they passed completely and their spirit left them, um, they were buried on the church grounds, and the church was fenced in, and they would protect the church, hence the term church grim. Okay, so there is absolutely, uh, unequivocally, no connection supernatural wise to Native American legend and legends, or stories of these smoke wolves. Okay, plain and simple. I think that they are definitely misconstruing it with sightings of a wolf pack, because they were transplanted here and reintroduced into the area of West Virginia, Virginia, all the way down the Appalachians. Um, I know of several cases where people have seen, wolf tracks, and they're as big as the palm of your hand. Um, and they get them all confused and get all wired up thinking it's a dog man. And it's not a dog man, it's a legitimate timber wolf print. Literally. Anybody that has raised wolves or has worked with wolves can tell you firsthand that they are huge. Okay, they're not your typical little shepherd. They're not your typical little coyote. They are big, beefy animals. Okay, and when they run in a pack, they can be very destructive when they want to be. So,
Well, I mean, look at it this way. So your black shuck came about and it attacked churches. Now, did it unalive people? Yes, it unalived several people. But it was attacking the churches that was persecuting what they called pagans. They were trying to
exactly.
get rid of the pagan religion. And so it
Yep.
was attacking the churches that was going against what the churches call pagans. So you got
Yep.
that aspect to look at. Which is yes, the black dog with red eyes is similar to the black shuck, but the black shuck only attacked certain things, where a black dog comes at you when you're at your lowest point and you're pushing too hard. So you see the differences in them. Kind of like hellhounds. Hellhounds are different than the black shuck because hellhounds will go after anybody. They're straight from hell. Um,
Exactly. See, Chris
Now,
knows.
is that similar to the black dog?
Chris is in the chat, and he just mentioned that over in Cincinnati, they've got the actual, wolf sanctuary there, and they are huge. They're a big beast, and I'm glad somebody's backing me up on it. I think that there's just a lot of confusion when you get the adrenaline going on anybody that's having any cryptid sighting. You're basing the information, the first-hand information, off of somebody that had the adrenaline rush, that is basing some of the, maybe exaggerated a little bit, off of the imagination and the adrenaline rush and the fear. Okay, so we have to consider that whenever you get a report. You have to consider that. Okay, hey hillbilly, good to see you, bud. um you have to. You can't not. Okay, and I always say question everything, and I mean it. You just don't want to go into everything assuming that everything is flesh and blood. Okay, especially nowadays. Okay, especially nowadays. Okay, it's like, with the ECBRO when they had their camp out. And David and Melissa know, they're experiencing things out there they never thought they'd experience, and I knew it was going to happen. Okay, and it's going to continue to happen. It really is, and it's going to escalate. Okay, And the best way to approach any investigation, whether it's supernatural, whether it's paranormal, whether it's cryptid related, you need to go in a good way. Plain and simple. If you go there half cocked and guns ablazing, you're going to have nothing but bad happen. Okay. If you go into a paranormal investigation and all you do is provoke, and instigate things with the spirits, you're going to have nothing but bad things happen. Okay. You're going to have threats being made. You're going to have very, very almost poltergeist type of activity being there. Okay. And having things occur, things being thrown, things being tossed, things being fallen over, doors slamming behind you. I mean, you can't go into these investigations, folks, not in a good way. You have to be respectful because most of the spirits out there were once human whenever you go into a paranormal investigation. Okay. So you have to do the same thing when you're going out into the wilderness. You have to be respectful because there are things in this world that most people don't have the capability or the knowledge or they can't even comprehend that these things exist. And those are called elementals and fae. Okay. And plain and simple, elementals are very, very ancient. Okay. Very ancient. Okay. And to tell you the truth, the only way I knew I was going to help the ECBRO with their camp out this past month was because of the elemental that I have around me. Okay. And it told me flat out that they needed to give a kind of an offering to appease the events that have happened on that property where they've been investigating. Okay. Not from their group, but from others that have been there. Okay. And a lot of people, they can't comprehend that. Okay. I'm sure Bounty and Corey and everybody in the chat, they know, that when you go and you do these investigations, you don't go off half cocked. You go in a good way. Okay. And because if you go in expecting demonic, what are you going to get? You're going to get demonic. Okay. You're going to get evil. Okay. But if you go in a good way and you be respectful and you say, I'm just here, to talk to you or to communicate with you or whatnot. And you can do the same thing with cryptid investigations and paranormal investigations out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. It's one thing to, how do I want to say this? It's one thing to take a physical flesh and blood cryptid and be afraid of it, okay, because of its possibilities of being able to harm you. But when you're dealing with something supernatural, let me tell you, you ain't going to see it coming. At least with a flesh and blood cryptid, you can hear it coming. You can see it coming. You can smell it coming. Okay.
Supernatural can also hide their intentions, making you think there's something else. And then, bam, surprise, guess what?
Exactly. Very, very good point. And that's the reason I want to try to put a stop to this smoke wolf thing, because it's gonna snowball if we don't stop this this descriptive type of stuff. Okay. And I'm telling you, there is no such thing as a smoke wolf. Okay. Not in Native American lore whatsoever. The closest thing is, like I said, the Shunkawarikon, okay, which was a flesh and blood animal. Okay. And a lot of us indigenous people thought that it might even be the dire wolf that we're describing. Okay. So yeah, there's David's in the chat, and in fact, go to his channel. He has a channel now, and he has the video up, and I actually watched the whole thing today, David. So I want to thank you for the shout out. But you need to go to this channel, and he can explain what happened better than I can because I wasn't there. But I did say on the comment section, David, that I would be willing to go out with you and sometime, whenever you go out there for a day or whatever, and do a ceremony out there to appease whatever's going on out there. Because if you don't, he knows as well as anybody, and anybody dealing with the paranormal, if you don't make peace with some entities, it can snowball into things that you don't want to have it snowball into being. Okay. So
Well, you look at it this way. When I was doing that initial investigation, getting the feel of the land of that werewolf encounter, hey, Mr. L,
mhm.
I instantly, as soon as I stepped out of my truck, could feel a very negative presence there. And
Mhm.
it wasn't a werewolf. I can tell you now, it was. And even William was feeling it, saying, "Dude, go get. You
Yeah.
need to go because it is something that was very. This is the type of stuff you deal with when you're dealing with supernatural, and you'll see me, man. During that live, I'm constantly looking around, going, "Crap, man! This thing's getting stronger." You can see right when I knew when it was a place to plant tobacco, and I needed to plant tobacco, and I did put tobacco offering out for it because I was told I needed to. And I could be wrong, but to me, it felt like I needed that for protection because something very, very evil was hunting me. This is the type of stuff that happens. When we say we go hunting monsters, we ain't joking, folks. We go out and hunt monsters. These
Yep.
things will turn you into a steamy pile of poo on the forest floor and a heartbeat, and there ain't jack crap you can do about it. You know?
Oh, yeah, that's actually true. That's actually very true. And then when you deal with the actual supernatural aspect of the whole spectrum of the weird that's happening, you got to look at it this way. You are spiritually naked in the worst cosmic storm that could ever be imagined. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
you got no shelter. What are you going to do?
Yep.
You have to be prepared, plain and simple. You
Mm-hmm.
just don't go out thinking
Yeah, I was
you're going to
wearing.
be able to investigate anything. So,
Yeah, and I was there. I was wearing my medicine bag that day. Usually, if I'm out dealing with something supernatural or something in the lines of a werewolf, I wear my medicine bag because I need it for protection. I don't do it on a lot of stuff because that can also prevent you from finding what you need.
yeah,
But there's times. You got to listen to your gut. There's times when you got to know, hey, I need to take some protection with me, and that's what I did. Now, do I feel I need more magic in that, more protection in that bag when I go back out there? Yes, because whatever that was very old, very ancient, very powerful, and I was at a great disadvantage. Luckily for me, I've got elementals that follow me. And I think that was a huge help as well. And they were probably the ones that told me to offer that tobacco in that spot it told me to. So
yeah,
that helps, and but that's like I said, when you can have a lack of protection and you're done. So be smart, be
yeah,
extremely smart about what you do.
exactly, exactly. So that being said, I just, I wanted to kind of clear the air tonight with that, with the whole smoke wolf thing. Um, we need to when we investigate cryptids, and it's like I've said, from anybody that knows me and has known me for the years that I've been on here, you know that I've always always said you have to separate the flesh and blood from the supernatural. You literally have to be able to determine the difference. Okay. The one thing I've always said is the eyes are the window to the soul. And if you see red eyes, you're dealing with something supernatural. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dealing with something with green or yellow eyes, you're dealing with something that's flesh and blood. Okay. Now, that is just one of the ways. Okay. You can interpret. Okay. Um, Another good thing is if tracks end like that, and you wonder, there's no trees around for it to go up to and go across tree to tree and come down, 80 yards further away and not be seen. Um, Tracks end all the time. Okay. Yeah, unless you're Yoda. Yeah. um, so you're dealing with something supernatural. And then we get into the whole aspect too of, when you're dealing with like, there's reports of like we talked about previously about Bigfoot's tracks stopping in the middle of a field, and in snow. Okay. And they just stop. Well, you have three choices. Either a UFO and alien little green guys came down and abducted him to do anal probes, which I highly doubt. Um, or he actually shifted realities. Okay. He actually wasn't from this dimension. Okay. He actually walked through a portal, whatever you want to call it, a gateway, you know, or it was a supernatural attachment making itself appear to be a Bigfoot and it just faded away. Okay. So you have to consider all three of the aspects of that. But when they say that, oh, he was probably picked up by a UFO, I don't know any aliens in their right mind that would think that they would be able to abduct a 9 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot tall, 1,000 to 1,500 pound cryptid that would be able to rip a hole in the side of their spaceship and get away with it. You know what I mean? I don't wish that on anybody. Okay. So what's that say? What's Unreal say? Nighthawk. How about that are both paranormal? Yeah. Well, that's the one thing. That's where I actually believe that how humans can be possessed demonically. Okay. I believe wholeheartedly that cryptids can have the same thing happen. Okay. I believe that if they are exposed to having an attachment to them, that they can be possessed and controlled by that means. Okay. Um, but I believe wholeheartedly that we have to separate the flesh and blood from the supernatural. Until we do that, there's always going to be that lingering doubt in the back of our minds saying, you know what, well, maybe it's all just cryptids. I'm not going to label everything a cryptid. I'm sorry.
No.
There are supernatural forces out there that are way more than what most researchers have even experienced yet, and they will. Trust me, they will experience
Yeah.
it. Just ask David and Melissa and Daniel at the ECBRO because they're experiencing it themselves. So
Yeah, I'm a firm believer there is a huge difference between supernatural, paranormal, and flesh and blood. They're not one and the same. They are completely different things. And then I also believe that we miscategorize things quite often. There's things that's supernatural we call paranormal. Things we
yep,
call paranormal that's supernatural. And then, like you
exactly.
said, we're the paranormal and the flesh and blood mix. We've got to stop doing that because they're different, folks. I mean, history
Yep.
will tell you that alone. They're different.
Yep. Yeah, Corey, that's a good point too. That's what and what have I always told everybody too, Eric? I've always told stand in your faith and don't show any fear. A lot of this
Mm-hmm.
negativity is it feeds off of your fear. Okay. And any all the religions in the world talk about these negative entities, supernatural beings that literally feed off of your fear. Okay. So, all the way from, the jinn to the grims, just so many different things. Even reptilian have been known to feed off of your fear. That's why they say the world is in such chaos, all the time, because the ones that are in control want to continue draining you, literally, like a battery. Okay, like a psychic battery. So it's just
But
food for thought, people. I mean, you can base your own beliefs and do your own research, but I wanted to come on and at least straighten out the thing with the smoke wolves and try to get everybody to actually think more on the lines of questioning everything, like David said on the video today, that I watched on his channel. You know, I don't say these things for my health. I say these things to help educate people because I'm not going to be here for very long. Okay. I'm trust me. Okay. And I want to get this information out, and it just needs to be talked about. It does.
yeah, well, like when I was learning that my gift wasn't a curse, it's an actual gift. Because for a long time I thought it was a curse. I'm like, why am I the only one that's experiencing this crap and nobody else can? I mean, for a long time I thought it was. My pastor actually said something that stuck to me. He says, Eric, it's not your fear that you're feeling, it's theirs because they know what you can do. And this is deals plays more with paranormal and supernatural side of it. But they
Mm-hmm.
know that you have the power to evict them, so to speak, and that causes fear. And sometimes
Exactly.
that fear can be misunderstood as your fear when it's not. So you got to learn how to tell the difference. And that's a hard thing to do. Fear is hard to break down, discern what's yours and what isn't. But if you
Exactly.
can do that, that will aid you greatly.
Yep. Exactly. One of these days, I'll get into more about the Coyote King too. By the way, and all
Cool.
I can tell you right now is that it is a trickster spirit. Okay, and it's in part of my bloodline, the Lakota part of my bloodline. We have Iktomi and we have the Coyote, which are the trickster spirits. Um,
Mhm.
but in my family's belief, and from what my uncles and stuff have taught me, that were of the Cherokee bloodline, and the Shawnee bloodline, they were the ones that told me of the Coyote King, and this was something that was happening within the Appalachian Mountains, and it is literally supposed to be a trickster spirit, kind of like the raven mocker when it uses the crow to see through its eyes. Okay, or Spearfinger when she, you know, tries to mind wipe somebody, and do things to them and take away their power. Okay, the same thing. Okay, there is some cryptids out there like Raven Mocker, you know, that are basically like I forget who it was said it in the chat about them being part spirit and part flesh and blood. But I believe that these are the beings that are able to go from this world into the shadow realm. And this, I've said it 100 times before. The shadow realm is a real place. Okay, it's what you call the veil. Okay, it's that thin veil between each dimension. Okay. And last week I talked about, that one Japanese scientist, where he talks about, how the parallel universes, when one dies, that part of us and that from that other universe gets dispersed amongst all the other parallel universes, all down a line that are us. Okay. From whatever we experienced in that world gets distributed amongst all the rest of our beings in all the parallel universes. Okay. All the parallel worlds. All right. So, does that have a play into the Mandela effect or the deja vu feeling, that kind of stuff? Yes, it does. Okay. And we've got to understand too that when animals die in these other realms, okay, not just human beings, but when the spirit of an animal comes into and gets broken down that same way, down the line, down the whole chain, you're going to see distortions happen. You're going to see supernatural things happen. Okay. It happens. Okay. And there's no explanation for it. Okay. So sometimes there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to find out what's going on. You're not going to be able to seek the answers that you want. Okay. Because it's beyond our comprehension. Okay. Until we are in the shadow realm. Okay. When we leave this body, then we'll know. Plain and simple.
Well, and there's so many documented cases throughout history where a holy man, a medicine man, or a shaman, or a vulva, something along that lines is able to tap into the shadow realm.
Bruja.
Normal people have also been documented as being able to tap into that shadow realm as well. Most of the time in dream state. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. Is we can subconsciously or consciously tap into that shadow realm as well. So be careful on what you do, because if you do it subconsciously, not meaning to, you could be greatly unprepared for what's about to happen, and that could bring some bad crap on you.
Yeah, exactly. So I urge everybody that when you're dealing with, when you're dealing with something that is reported to you that is a cryptid, and it's reported that it has red glowing eyes, and I mean eyes that are just really bright that can light up a room, like the Mothman sightings. Um, you're dealing with something supernatural. That's one indication that you're dealing with something supernatural. Unless that is a flesh and blood creature that lives deep within the earth, that had to develop some kind of a visual effect to see, in the dark all the time, then you're dealing with something supernatural. Plain and simple. Okay. So, and that being said, the previous podcast that I did about the incident that happened in North Carolina, Eric, on
Mm-hmm.
Route 210 and Route 53, and I think it was what county was it? I can't remember the county name, but it was actually proven. The guy that does the North Carolina podcast that did the initial interview with the young man. The young man's a
Correct.
military vet, so he's not lying. Okay, and he's also they actually played the recording, the 911 recording, while driving down that road, and every time he mentioned a spot on that road, it was pretty consistent with the location of the reenactment of the vehicle. So, you know, and that little clip of the 911 call wasn't the whole clip. There was more to it, and they get into what it wasn't and just more descriptions of it. and I urge everybody to check it out, okay, if they can. Um, but that being said, I'm glad I came on tonight. I want you guys to really, really show um, Scott's wife Hannah the love if you can. Um, help her out. There's the GoFundMe. I'll put it back up on the screen, which is GoFundMe.me/568 B60E59. Okay. That's GoFundMe.me/568 B60E59. Okay. If anybody can help, thank you, Peggy, again for organizing that if you're watching. And let's just keep Hannah in our prayers and, message her and let her know that she's not going to be forgotten because she's not. Okay. And she's got a lot of good people around her. So, and I hope we all do. I really do. That's what we're here for. So, tomorrow morning, we'll be coming on at 11 a.m. And Sunday for Supernatural Sunday, we're going to be talking about the Hat Man and Shadow People. Okay. So I'm not sure what we'll talk about tomorrow. Maybe we'll get into the Bigfoot and the Dog Man thing a little bit more in depth. And the Shunka Waricon could be a good lead off. That being said, I want to thank the moderators. They're fantastic. Okay, as always, I want to thank everybody for being here. And moderators, this is for you. I could have been bad and just, I could have done the gunshot or the laugh audience or something like that. But anyways, what do you got going on? Yeah, there you go.
If you guys missed it, I had the very first episode of the Writers Workshop with my special guest author D.A. Roberts. That was one of the two shows that in the book club was recommended by the members only. Both of those, the first episodes, have been done now. It was a great show. We kind of talk about our writing styles, what gave us the ideas for our books, how we do our research. That's what that show was about. I literally just done that before coming on live with Brother William here. So if you guys missed it, go to the Bizarre and the Unknown on YouTube and check out that one. A couple weeks ago, you can check out the first ever the book club where we go over my book Saga Grimson, book one, the beginning. And then tomorrow, I've got campfire chats with Eric and guests that I have every Saturday. If you have an encounter you want to talk about, come and let us know. Listen to our encounters. If you want to come on live, I'll bring you on live. Sunday, means they got the technical stuff fixed. I will have One Foot in the Grave Paranormal Team live as we talk about Ghost Talk. And I am currently back to writing again, means I finally got some time.
Good. Cool.
That's me.
All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you can, please like this and share it out. And remember, when I say question everything, I mean it, man. You got to question everything. Okay. Just don't go at everything as being evil. Okay. And being threatening. Go at things in a positive way. Any investigation, whether it's paranormal, supernatural, or cryptid, go in a good way. Okay. Lay that tobacco down, say that silent prayer, and thanking them for having, the patience dealing with you as a human in something that we're not used to dealing with. Okay. So make that connection. All right. And I guess we will see everybody in the morning. So that being said, I'm going to let you guys talk in the chat. I want to play something here for you that I have just done. And I don't know if anybody likes rap music, but this is something that I did recently. I just wanted to play it for tonight real quick, and then we'll close it out and end the stream and get everybody off to bed.
Thunder cracks, created steps in the alley. Demons scatter quick, shadows play a rally. Angels pull up in hoodies, wings tucked tight. Heaven's militia ready to ignite. Chains rattling, streets screaming in pain. Evil out here wildin', trying to stake its claim. But the squad don't sleep, nah, they don't fold. Flame swords drawn, their wrath runs cold. Creator fights for you, the streets can't deny. Angels on patrol, wings cut in the sky. Evil runs, evil hides, it's a battle every night. But the light don't lose, nah, the light gon' fight. Concrete jungle where prayers get raw. Creator got that blueprint, he lays down the law. Angels circle the block, halos dim for war. They ain't here for peace talks, they settle the score. Knuckles crack, fists fly, darkness gets smacked. Evil got no alibi, caught in the act. Holy vengeance on deck, justice intact. Creator's army on the streets, never off track. Midnight sirens, but they don't need no badge. Heaven soldiers turn sin into ash. Midnight sirens, but they don't need no badge. Heaven soldiers turn sin into ash.
All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for being here, and enjoy the rest of your night or morning, whatever it is in your area. And we'll see everybody at 11 a.m. in the morning, okay? Take care, everybody.
Peace, love, and blessings, everyone.
Through the mist we rise, a force unbroken, with banners high and hearts awoken. The sound of pipes, our war is calling. Like thunderous waves, our duty is falling. Stand tall, together we fight, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy our death. In unity our hearts shall sing the legacy of warriors through every reign. With battle cries we forge our fate, in fields of valor we elevate. As shadows loom, our spirits gleam. Brothers in arms, we are the dream. Fearless, we take the night, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy